Hey there, good to see you. Today in this video, we are taking a look at K2, a new filter system from Freewell that literally just went live through a crowdfunding campaign. And I definitely have some thoughts about the pros and cons of K2 and about who this filter system would be most ideal for. Now to clarify, this video is not a marketing video or a promotional video. I am not affiliated with Freewell. Freewell did provide me with K2 and various filters to test in order to produce this review. And I've had these for a few weeks now ahead of the crowdfunding campaign launch. This is an honest and unbiased review of the system. Okay, so Freewell has designed K2 to be an all-in-one filter system. That means it includes pretty much every type of filter that a photographer, a videographer, or a filmmaker could ever want or could ever need. And the root of the K2 system is this filter holder that you see here. And this holder mounts to the front of your camera lens using one of the provided adapter rings. And these are threaded adapter rings, and there are 4 included in the box for the most common lens diameters. And you mount K2 by just squeezing these 2 red buttons on the side of the holder, and then this pops onto the adapter like so. This holder also rotates, and I'll talk more about why that's useful here in a minute. And then there are locking pins here on the side, and you just tighten these down like so, and then it stays in place. And by the way, there's a really clever little spirit level up here at the top of the holder. That's really nice, so you know when it is perfectly level on the lens. Nice little touch. Now the variable NDs in K2 they share the same design as the other magnetized VND system that Freewell came out with a while back that I reviewed here on my channel. And what they've done here is separate the traditional circular VND into 2 separate panes of glass, because that is what a traditional VND uses. There are 2 panes of polarized glass, and you take the first pane of glass, the small one here, and you place it inside of the filter holder. Then the next step is choosing a density. Now this one here is 1 to 5 stops, and this one here is 6 to 9 stops. This one here is a little bit darker. Let's throw the 1 to 5 on. Now what you want to do when you magnetically mount it, and by the way, you can just take it on and off like so. When you magnetically mount it to the front, you need to turn it until you hear this little click sound. That right there. So what that means is that the filter has slotted into a groove that's on the front of the K2 filter holder. And now when I turn this VND, it has hard stops. It stops at its minimum density, and then it stops at its maximum density, which is important if you've ever used a VND and accidentally overturned it. Yeah. Okay, so you're shooting video and you have your VND on. Now let's say that you want to add some diffusion. You want to add some diffusion mist in order to knock back some of the digital clarity and sharpness of the sensor and the camera. Well, to do that, we may use a diffusion mist filter. And this one here is a snow mist filter. And this is kind of similar to a videography matte box or a square filter holder in still photography. You open this top flap up here, drop it in like so. And now we have diffusion mist. So now we are shooting with a 1 to 5 stop VND with diffusion mist. Now let's say that the lighting conditions change, it suddenly gets bright, and you need to open up your aperture really wide because you need some shallow depth of field. You can take the 1 to 5 VND off, and then you pop the 6 to 9 VND on, click it into place like before. And now we are shooting with a 6 to 9 stop VND with diffusion mist. And by the way, at any time you can just, pop this filter out. If you don't want it, put it back in, just like so. Freewell is also offering some cinemorphic filters. These are filters that emulate the appearance of anamorphic glass by introducing light streaks. If you've ever seen like a J.J. Abrams movie, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. This one here is a gold streak filter, and this just goes right into the filter holder, similar to the diffusion mist. Now let's say that you are doing still photography. Well, we can switch from a variable ND to a solid ND. And what we need to do is remove this base VND filter from inside of here. These are also available from Freewell for the K2 system, and these pop into the inner ring just like the base VND filter. K2 also includes rectangular graduated NDs. And when you add these, you want to open the bottom flap on the K2 holder, and then this slides in like so. Now, just like any other rectangular filter system, these slide up and down So you're able to line up the linear gradient exactly where you want it. And you can also flip this over and come in through the bottom of the K2 holder as well if you want to, like say darken the foreground instead of the sky, which is a pretty common thing to do, especially in landscape photography. Okay, so now let's say you're shooting outdoors and the sun is creating some harsh reflections in your scene. Maybe it's a building, maybe it's some like wet rocks or a pool of water, something like that. And you want to minimize those reflections so you're able to see more detail. Well, for that, you would use a circular polarizer. Exactly. Well, because these VNDs use 2 panes of polarized glass, when used independently, these are effectively circular polarizers. And the 1 to 5 stop VND has a 1 stop CPL, and the 6 to 9 stop VND is a 3 stop CPL, effectively making this a dark CPL. And again, all we do is just flip it over to the other side, mount this on the front, and we have a circular polarizer. And because this side of the filter does not have those grooves I was talking about earlier, it doesn't lock into place. This just simply turns like so. So as you can see, I'm rotating at 360 degrees. So I'm able to align, watch my image to the back of the camera back here and align the CPL in just the right place relative to the angle of sun in order to minimize those reflections in my shot. And this modularity that you see here is why Freewell is calling this an all-in-one filter system, because it includes all the different types of filters. And then when you mix and match them together, you get even more combinations of filters. So it includes pretty much everything that a photographer, a videographer, or a filmmaker could ever want. Oh, and I forgot to mention that when you add a graduated ND like so to K2, you may loosen up these locking pins on the side here and then rotate the filter holder into just the right spot. So how good is the glass? How good are these filters in the K2 system from Freewell? Well, in my experience, I've tested a number of filters made by Freewell in the past, and I've also tested a number of filters from other companies as well. And in my experience, I've never had problems with color cast or a loss of sharpness or clarity or any issues of the sort with filters made by Freewell. They always seem to use good quality glass in their filters, and the same is true for K2. And actually, it appears that the K2 variable NDs are a little more color accurate than earlier variable NDs made by Freewell. Those earlier VNDs from Freewell always added a little bit of warmth, a little bit of yellowing to the image, which was actually perfectly normal for a VND. Variable NDs tend to be less color accurate than solid NDs. They always seem to, contribute a little bit of color cast. Sometimes they're a little bit yellow, sometimes a little blue, sometimes a little green. And it's part of the reason why, photographers and some videographers for that matter prefer shooting with solid NDs, because solid NDs contribute little, if any, color cast at all. They're oftentimes more pure optically, and they don't contribute anything more to the image. Now, something to be aware of when using the K2 variable NDs, and by the way, this is true for variable NDs made by other companies as well, is that the variable NDs perform perfectly fine in controlled lighting environments and on cloudy days outdoors. And by fine, I mean you can change densities on the filter, you can take the filter on and off, and you should see little to no difference in your footage. However, on a clear, bright day, because VNDs use polarized glass, they have a tendency to turn blue skies really dark blue and sometimes even a little bit splotchy. And the filters can also filter light in kind of strange ways. And you're going to see some differences in your footage when changing densities and when taking the VND on and off. So on bright sunny days, in my opinion, it's better to use solid NDs, but variable NDs are generally fine for anything else. The K2 Snow Mist Diffusion filter, I think it looks nice. I like how it softens contrast in the image, how it reduces saturation, and how it adds just a little bit of bloom and glow to the bright highlights. It's a really subtle thing, but I think it does make a difference, and I think it does help make digital footage look just a little less digital. As far as vignette goes with the filters and the holder itself, especially when shooting wide angle, no trouble there that I can find. And this is a 14 to 35 millimeter lens here, and there's no trouble. The holder doesn't appear in the image or any problems with that. As far as sharpness and detail goes, no trouble there either. And I tested, I took a number of images with and without filters and with different combinations of filters, and I never saw any noticeable loss of sharpness or detail in the image with and without these filters attached. Okay, as far as the design and the construction of the K2 system is concerned, everything is very well made, very well constructed. All of the filters use lightweight aluminum bands around the outside. Nothing is bulky or heavy in any way. They're all very lightweight. And that also extends to the filter holder itself. When you're placing the VND base filter, which is this one here, when you're putting that in here, or when you're putting a solid ND in here, it's really important that you get this little tab of the filter lined up with this little slot here. Because let me show you, if you just, if you're just kind of sloppy about it and just kind of like drop that inner filter in like that, and then try to put one of these in, well, the filter is not going to go in. And you might start getting aggressive with it and start pushing it and be like, what's wrong? Why can't I push this in? Well, the reason why is because this filter inside is not sitting completely flush. So you have to line up that tab just so, and it should pop. So when you hear that sound, it's been magnetically mounted. It's inside of that tiny little thin slot inside of there. And then you shouldn't have any trouble adding a filter after that. Now, in case you're curious to know, if you already own filters like this one here, like a square or rectangular filter made by another company that you would use in a square filter holder, and if you're curious to know whether you can use these in K2, unfortunately, the answer is no. K2 is a proprietary product with a proprietary design. These do not fit because they're too large. The K2 filters are smaller and they have these aluminum frames around the outside here. So, which is one of the downsides of K2. It's not unusual. I've seen other companies make filter systems like these with proprietary designs like this. But it's not like other filter holders, especially ones used in photography where you can mix and match square and rectangular filters made by different brands in the same holder. That's not how this system works. This is a closed system. So when you need additional filters for K2, well, you buy more of them from Freewell and not from someone else. So other little design things, the box is quite nice. The box has a little metal loop here on the back that you could put a belt through maybe, or maybe a really skinny belt. It's probably better with like a carabiner or something like that. But anyway, and then on the inside, you have room for the holder itself, for the magnetized lens cap, by the way, which it comes with. And then in the back of the box, this is a rather clever little thing. There's this lift up little area, and here you have individual slots for all the different, for the 4 different adapters that come in the kit. And it's great that it comes with these because it means that you could throw, an adapter on a different lens and then just, pick up the whole holder, move it from one lens to another. If you wanted to change focal lengths while you're out in the field, you can just easily take this off, pop it onto another lens, and keep shooting. Another thing I was glad to see is that on the back of these cases here, which is what these filters here are stored in, down here at the bottom there is a little plastic tab here. It kind of reminds me of like an old Trapper Keeper notebook or something. Little areas here where you could just put in like a little piece of paper here, or a little label or something, so you know what's in the case. Because when you get a few of these cases, you can't tell them apart. So nice little design detail. Now, the people who I believe will get the most value out of K2, the people who will like this product the most, are the videographers and the hybrid shooters. Because with the latter, you would only need to pack and bring with you one filter system. You could just bring K2 with you, as opposed to packing one set of filters for your video and one set of filters for photography, and then having to change them in the field when, switching back and forth and whatever. With K2, it's all self-contained, it's all one system. If you are someone who primarily shoots using solid NDs, I personally feel like the experience of adding and removing solid NDs from K2 it's definitely more cumbersome than using just a simple magnetized solid ND that you stick to the front of a lens. It's also more cumbersome than using a solid ND in a square filter holder where you insert it through the top, because you do have to line it up just so. You have to get it into the groove in here and get it into that tab so it pops right into place where it's supposed to be, and there's no light leakage or anything like that. You have to use a fingernail in order to pry it out. So if you're outdoors and wearing gloves and it's cold, you have to take off your glove and then stick a fingernail in there and pull the solid ND out. in order to remove it or swap it with a different one. I think, K2's strength is also its weakness. It's one of those funny things where it's a system that could be overkill for some users and maybe too much system for some people, especially if all you ever use is like just a filter or two. However, if you are someone who wants this modularity, someone who wants the ability to combine filters like I just demonstrated here, and you want the flexibility to grow and expand and have the system grow and expand with you, well, that is what K2 is optimized for. That is the ideal user for K2. All right, I hope this video was helpful. I hope you learned something about K2. Hopefully the pros and cons that I shared with you in this video helped you, come to some kind of decision as to whether K2 is right for you. If you would like to learn more about K2 and see all the different types of filters that are available and see what the pricing is, there is a link down below in the video description you may use. Oh, and also down in the video description, I will leave a link to the blog post for this video review in case you're watching this video at a later date and you want to see if there's any updates, any changes with this review. Look for that link down below if you want to get the very latest information about K2 if you're watching this at some point in the future. Thanks to Freewell for supporting my channel and for providing everything that you saw in this video here. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you as well for being here. If you enjoyed the video, please take a moment and give it a thumbs up down below and also subscribe if you would care to do this again in the future. That's it for me, everyone. I will see you next time.